Well, folks, it's February 24th, 2025, and we got some big news happening today.
Yeah, some really big stories.
One involves, well, a touchdown of controversy, you could say, with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay.
And the other is sending some serious shockwaves through the Pentagon.
All right.
Let's just dive right in.
Yeah, sounds good. What's interesting is that both of these stories, on the surface, they seem totally different.
Right.
But they both really highlight how power and influence are changing in America today.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing people and institutions challenging the norms, pushing back against what they see as unacceptable.
Okay, so let's start with the Eagles.
All right.
They just won Super Bowl LIX.
Huge win.
Huge win, but they're skipping the traditional White House visit.
Right.
Now, this isn't just about skipping a party.
No.
This has some history behind it.
Yeah, for sure. You got to rewind back to 2018.
Okay.
The Eagles, they had just won a Super Bowl LII.
Right.
But then President Trump, he disinvited them.
He did, yeah.
After players planned to protest racial injustice during the national anthem.
So some definite tension there. But is this current decision just a reaction to that? Or is there something more to it?
It's probably a mix of both, right? And then the team hasn't forgotten 2018. And with players like Jalen Hurts, who's been pretty vocal about his opposition to Trump's policies, it feels like they're making a statement.
It really does. I mean, it makes you wonder if this is a turning point,
Yeah.
between sports and politics. I mean, the Super Bowl visit, that's been a tradition forever.
For decades, yeah.
Decades. So for the Eagles to just break with that so publicly,
Yeah.
it's a strong message.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating, right? Because this one decision, who knows what kind of ribbon effect it could have.
Yeah.
Will other teams follow their lead? Could this change how sports figures interact with the White House completely?
Right.
Maybe give them more say on social and political issues?
Okay, so we've got a potential power struggle brewing in the world of sports. But things are even more intense over at the Pentagon today. What in the world happened with this military shakeup?
Well, President Trump fired several top military leaders,
Wow.
including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown,
Okay.
and the chief of naval operations, Lisa Franchetti.
So not just a reshuffling.
No, this is way bigger than that. It's unprecedented, actually. I mean, never before have two Joint Chiefs members been fired at the same time.
Wow, that's a huge move. What kind of reaction are we seeing to this?
Oh, it's caused a stir for sure. Senator Jack Reed, he's the top Democrat on the Armed Services Committee.
Okay.
He didn't hold back. He called the firings completely unjustified.
Wow.
And he even accused Trump of trying to politicize the military.
Okay.
He said he wants military leaders to be loyal to him, not to the Constitution.
So some serious potential constitutional implications here. But, beyond the politics, what does this mean for just the stability of our military?
Right. Retired General George Casey Jr.
Yeah.
called the firings extremely destabilizing. And, I mean, you have to wonder, what does this do to morale?
Yeah.
To the chain of command? You just remove the top leaders like that out of the blue. And then, even more importantly, I mean, does this make us vulnerable on the global stage?
Yeah, it feels like there's a power vacuum at the top. So who's stepping into those roles now?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. Trump has nominated Lieutenant General Dan Raising-Kane to be the new chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
Okay.
But the thing is, he's a retired three-star general,
Okay.
and he's never even been nominated for a position this high-ranking before.
Hold on. So you're saying he's making a massive jump here in terms of responsibility.
Exactly.
What's his background?
Right now, he's a partner at Shield Capital, a venture capital firm.
Okay.
And this is what's raising eyebrows, right? Because it brings up potential conflicts of interest.
Uh-huh.
And it also makes people question if he's actually qualified for this kind of role.
So not only do we have this dramatic firing of top military officials, but the replacement is also raising some serious questions. What does all of this tell us about where the military is headed under Trump?
It definitely makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes. What are the criteria for selecting military leadership? Is it really experience, expertise, or is it something else? And what does this all mean for our allies and our adversaries?
Yeah, it's a good question. We started off talking about the Eagles skipping that White House visit.
Right.
And now we're talking about this huge shakeup in the military.
Yeah.
They seem pretty different, but like you said earlier, they kind of point to a bigger trend. Can you talk a little more about that?
Sure. I think what we're seeing is a real shift in the power landscape in America. Like, on one hand, you've got these athletes like the Eagles. They're using their platform to make a political statement,
Right.
and maybe even inspire others to do the same.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you've got the president, he's using his authority in a way that's making people worry about the military getting too political.
Right.
So both of these situations, they're starting a conversation about who really has the power
Yeah.
and how that power is used.
So it's kind of like individual empowerment, versus those traditional power structures.
Exactly. And it's happening everywhere, not just in sports and the military.
Right.
Think about social media.
Yeah.
It's given people a platform to challenge authority spread information and mobilize movements. People have access to information now more than ever, and they can connect with each other in ways we never could before.
Right.
And it's changing the balance of power in ways we're just starting to understand.
It's like a democratization of influence, but that comes with its own set of challenges too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's great to see people and groups challenge the way things have always been done.
Right.
But this shift can also be destabilizing.
In what ways?
Well, you've got the spread of misinformation, the potential for people to be manipulated, and just the erosion of trust in institutions. Those are all serious concerns.
Yeah, they are. So how do we navigate this new world
Right.
where traditional power structures are being challenged and individual voices have more influence than ever?
That's a big question, isn't it? I think one really important part of the answer is to focus on critical thinking skills
Okay.
and media literacy.
Yeah.
People need to be able to look at information and decide if it's reliable or not.
Right.
Tell the difference between facts and fiction.
Yeah.
And understand the motivations behind different sources.
So basically you're saying we need a more informed and engaged citizenry.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, in a democracy, the power belongs to the people.
Right.
But for that power to be used well, it needs to be based on knowledge and understanding.
Okay, so we need to be smart about how we consume information
Yes.
and how we participate in these public discussions.
Right.
But what about the people who are already in positions of power? What role do they play in shaping this new landscape?
I think leaders, whether they're in government or the military or even in sports organizations, need to realize that the power dynamics are changing
Yeah.
and they need to adapt. They need to be transparent and accountable,
Okay.
and they need to be willing to actually talk to the people they represent.
So you're saying that the old top-down way of leading isn't really working anymore?
Exactly. Leaders who try to hold on to those old models are probably going to find themselves out of touch and ineffective.
You know, we've covered a lot today, from the Eagles' decision to the president's actions.
We have.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
It's easy to get overwhelmed by it all. What's the main thing you want our listeners to remember from this?
I think the main takeaway is that we're living in a time of huge change.
Yeah,
The old rules, the old norms, they're being challenged,
right?
and new power dynamics are emerging. It can be exciting, but it can also be a little scary.
Yeah.
But ultimately, how this all unfolds depends on us.
On us.
Yeah, on how we choose to engage, how we inform ourselves,
Right.
and how we use our own voices and influence.
So what can our listeners do to make sense of all of this and find their place in this changing world?
Well, I think it starts with realizing that we all have a role to play in this. We can stay informed.
Right.
We can engage in thoughtful discussions.
Yeah.
And we can hold our leaders accountable. And it's important to remember that change doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It's a process.
Yeah.
It takes patience,
Yeah.
persistence, and a willingness to be open to new ideas and new perspectives.
You know, it's easy to get caught up in all the negative stuff that's happening,
It is.
especially with all these big events going on.
Yeah.
But you're right. We have to stay engaged
Yeah.
and focus on what we can actually control,
Right.
because we do have the power to shape the future,
We do.
but only if we participate.
Exactly. And there are so many ways to participate. It
Yeah.
can be as simple as talking to your friends and family about these issues.
Right.
Or it can be more involved, like getting active in your community or supporting causes that you care about.
So it's not just about knowing what's going on.
No.
It's about actually doing something.
Yeah.
It's about using that knowledge to make a difference.
Exactly. And I think that's where the hope comes from.
Yeah.
From people who are willing to take action, to stand up, speak out, and work to create a better future.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap things up.
Yeah, I agree.
We talked about some pretty serious stuff today.
We did.
But at the end of the day, it's really up to us
It is.
to decide what kind of world we want to live in.
Yeah,
And we have a power to make it happen,
we do.
but we have to use it.
Right.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was great to be here.
We hope you found it informative
Yeah,
and thought-provoking,
absolutely.
and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Hopefully.
Until next time, stay curious.
Yeah.
Stay engaged.
And stay hopeful.